Alex, I can hear birds chirping.
Yeah, I got a window open because there's a nice breeze coming in. It's nice and cool outside right before we get inundated with thunderstorms for 9 straight hours.
Oh, really? You're getting storms all day?
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh man, I'm jealous.
Yeah.
I there was a pretty good storm. There was a pretty good storm on Saturday. This is the first real one I've had since I moved back. It's definitely one of those things that I missed all the time when I was out in San Francisco.
Oh yeah. Because there's no real weather in San Francisco. There's foggy and there's cold and then
Yep.
sometimes it's really hot and that's about it. Uh, I was just saying when I first moved out to Boston and I got my first thunderstorm and then my first snowstorm, I was just like, holy shit! I forgot what weather looked like.
Yeah, that was one of those things that I appreciated for like the first 2 or 3 years of living in San Francisco was the lack of seasons, and then over time, like came to really miss the fact that they like having 70s weather all year long. That is absolutely nice. I don't want to discredit that at all, but the
Sure.
idea of like having a fall and a spring and a summer, like we'll see what happens when I get to the winter and I got to walk my dog 3 times a day.
Right.
Uh, Maybe I'll be singing a different tune, but I definitely am appreciating it right now, for sure.
Yeah, no, it's supposed to be straight up thunderstorms for about 8 hours straight this afternoon
Oh,
and evening. So it's gonna be a thing.
I would just take the day off, just hang out and look outside your window and get day drunk.
No, I'm gonna write my Beyond review today, and I figure that's a good atmosphere for that. So that'll be
Seems like that might be the same thing as getting day drunk.
yeah, kind of a little bit. Certainly can't write that review sober, that's for sure.
No.
Patrick, how
Yeah,
was your weekend? What
it
did you
was
get up
good.
to?
I didn't do a whole lot. I kind of laid low. I had to start really finalizing this TED talk that I'm doing. So I had a chance. My wife being out of town, it was a chance to kind of just like ruminate over that, and then also like oftentimes when you're writing something like this, like you'll just kind of like not it's not writer's block as much as just like I've stared at this too long. I can't do anything with this anymore. I need to walk away and come back. And often
Sure.
when you walk away, I will figure out the turn of phrase or pivot point or something along those lines that I wanted to come up with. So I had a full like 48 hours to kind of like sit down with it for an hour, walk away, and I've got it mostly in a place that I'm pretty happy with. And then I also finished GTA 5.
Yeah, so did I.
Um,
I don't know how much we really want to talk about the ending of that game because I mean,
no.
obviously we don't want to spoil it for people, but I will say that I felt it to be an entirely adequate wrapping up of that whole last bit of the game there, in the sense that, okay, yeah, that's a way that game can end reasonably. It's not very good, but it happens. It makes a degree of sense, so I'll give it that.
Yeah, it. I guess it ties up the loose ends, but I didn't feel like there was a whole lot of emotional satisfaction for the arc of the characters. Um, and again, getting too much into this would be uh, a spoiler territory given the size of that game. But I will say one of the like sort of like uh, the takeaways I had having finished that game, what I find continually surprising, and they definitely tried to address it in this game. Uh, I don't think particularly successfully, but you can see that they're trying to address it. So, as a game that is all about being open and do whatever you want, player freedom, the missions are incredibly restrictive and frustrating
Yeah.
when you don't adhere to their very specific parameters of what they want you to do. And I'm speaking to like the strange moments where they want you to do something so specific, like there's a mission where you're on Trevor and you've got to jump on a train, and I failed that like 9 times, and I bet there were a bunch of people that nailed it in the first time. But it's the equivalent of an Uncharted type sequence where they want something big and dramatic and cool to happen, but they don't give you any room for error. And so when the player doesn't do exactly what's being asked of them, it becomes really frustrating. And it feels like it is more and more at odds with the game's biggest strength.
Right. Yeah, I mean that's the real long and short of GTA 5 for me, is that they have built a pretty incredible playground in that world, and they have put some really interesting things for you to do in there, and they have also given you a lot of missions that are not necessarily all that exciting to do within the sort of, framework of the freedom of that world. The heists are a really cool thing. That I enjoyed pretty much all of those. I enjoyed some of the story missions. I enjoyed most of the Strangers and Freaks missions, the exception of the occasional tow truck thing, notwithstanding. But otherwise, though, I have to say, it's like mechanically maybe more interesting mission-wise than some of the stuff in GTA 4, but in terms of like the story and the characters and sort of like getting invested in what's going on, GTA 5 kind of left me a little cold. The end of it all, it was sort of like, I picked the ending that made the most sense, with what I thought the theme of the game was, which was, homies don't abandon one another. Homies stick together. They gotta deal with all that shit together. So I went that route, and yeah, I mean, it's an ending. It's a little bit of kind of rote revenge porn that doesn't really have a whole lot of impact, considering that game does not spend a lot of time making you care about a lot of those characters one way or the other. Like, most of the people that they're like trying to make you hate in that game, I was pretty ambivalent toward, honestly. It was like, yeah, no, that's another really good stereotype of a rich white billionaire. That's great going, Housers. Nice job. You've totally way to nail Whitey again.
I don't want to be careful with too much how we speak towards that end of it, but I found myself, I feel like there are two games in GTA. There is the open world, and then there is the story that they write on top of that, the storytelling that they're trying to do is, I feel like, at odds with the world that they're building, and I don't know how they sort of solve that problem for themselves. It sounds like that must be frustrating, because they're building all this big world with all this stuff in it, and it's really lovely and it's fun to run around in. But I think the way Jeff put it when I listened to part of the podcast from last week was like, if there was a version of the game that just let me play this like a normal single-player game, where you just skipped from mission to mission to mission, and it just kind of played out how this stuff normally does,
yeah,
I wouldn't probably be against that. But at the same time, the moments where I am in the open world, where, like, especially when I'm in a plane, I feel like that's when I come to appreciate the world in a way that I don't necessarily always do on the ground. I'm glad that it's there and what it allows for. I just feel like the game they're building is too strict in allowing you to enjoy the freedoms of that. And as they try and tell more meaningful stories, they're really running up against the boundaries of what they can do. Trevor's a character that tries to solve that for them, which is, feel free to be an asshole, feel free to be crazy, because this guy doesn't have a whole lot of rules. But even then,
he's pure id, just running fucking roughshod over everything.
Yeah, but even then, they aren't able to adhere to Trevor's rule set throughout the entire game, where oftentimes they will have Trevor do things that are against the logic of the character. I don't want to talk about those moments, but there are moments where, yes, Trevor is crazy, but he always has a reason for doing what he does. It may be misguided, it may be an overreaction, but he always has a logic to... He has an internal logic that makes sense for the character if it does not make sense for the player. And I found that troublesome. I found like that was more indicative of this larger systemic issue in the narrative as it relates to the game world, because they've gotten so good at building this world, and I think the story part is trying to come along with it, and it's not quite there.
Yeah, it just didn't totally cohere for me. It didn't completely come together. I definitely enjoyed a number of parts of playing that game, but I think I'm kind of like, I'll play a little bit more of the online, and I'll certainly play some more when the DLC comes along. But I think I'm pretty much like, there are some leftover missions I could go do. I'm probably not going to go do those. I'm just going to wait until DLC comes along to play any more of it. But yeah.
Yeah, I'm really hoping that they put out a PC or next gen version of the game. I think by the time that the DLC comes out, if those versions exist, they will be released, and that world in 1080p, 60 frames per second would be something else.
Yeah.
Especially the water, which turns the frame rate into like single digits. I would love to play the DLC, which continues to be sort of Rockstar's strength for sure. When they have sort of like more focused storytelling. I wouldn't have a problem buying that game again just to play the DLC in a much better technical situation.
For sure.
So I finished that, and then I also played a decent chunk of Rayman Legends. Got much further into that, and
What world are you up to at this point?
I just finished the Luchador Mexico world,
Sure.
with all the skeletons, the Dia de los Muertos sort of thematics.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is. So I feel like I have to go back and play Origins to confirm this, but it does feel like the platforming is a little bit tighter. In this one, it doesn't feel nearly as loose, but I also can't tell, having not gone back to Origins, whether that is purely a function of the level design being better or if the platforming itself has been tweaked. But I know it feels like I can execute things better and more attuned to what I want to do better than I was able to do in Origins.
Yeah, I don't think. I don't know. I think part of the problem with Origins, and I say problem very lightly because that game is also pretty spectacular in its own right. Just the difficulty balance in that game was a lot rougher in a lot of spots. I think that they had I don't know, just for that the progression of that game I think was pretty good, but once you got to the later levels, like the platforming was tight, but the level designs were so intricate and so specifically geared toward very precise platforming mechanics that it didn't always come together. This one, I feel like they loosed the difficulty back, like they brought it back a little bit. I don't feel like mechanically it's changed that much from Origins. I feel like it's a pretty similar control, like timing and just the feel of it. But I think the levels they built around that stuff require a little less insane precision. I mean, the key example is the musical levels versus like those goddamn treasure chest chases from the last one. Like that. I hated those levels in Origins, but the musical stuff in Legends I feel like works perfectly because like even if you don't know the exact timing of the song, I felt like I could kind of predict it and get it right, in nearly all of those levels.
And I actually think the version of the chase sequence, the treasure chest sequence from Origins that they've redeveloped for Legends, which is basically you have these time trials where you can get, what is it, looms? Is that what you're collecting? Little characters.
I think so.
You have a section of a level that you've already played. I think the level might be actually rejiggered a little bit, but basically you had if you can do it in 40 seconds, then you collect 3 of them. 50 seconds too. I feel like those were a lot of fun because they were very short, and because they were short, the rule set was the same every single time. So I could get the timing down for each sequence, and it felt really satisfying to nail it, because when I actually did nail it, I would come in well under the 40 seconds. Like I aimed for the 3 looms every single time, and usually I'd end up getting like 32 seconds, and that was incredibly satisfying. And I do feel like the main stages in this game lean more on the end of lums. The chat is saying lums,
sure,
not looms.
Whatever.
The bullshit you have to collect in a platformer.
The things.
Yeah, and now I completely lost what I was going to say. Completely thrown off.
Oh. See, this is why you shouldn't ever read the chat while you're talking about stuff, because that will totally fuck you up. But you like Rayman Legends. You're still enjoying it.
Okay, I got it. I figured it out. So the levels are more tuned towards exploration, right? Like so. Sure. Part of Origins was seeking the secret rooms and where like the hidden spots that they were hiding the different lums, and I feel like this one even more so kind of slows it down a bit and says like, hey, why don't you take some time? Why don't you look around? Make sure you kind of find everything we've hidden, and it makes it so satisfying when you do find something, because it has that little hooray, like it gives you this tiny bit of feedback that feels so damn good every time. Even before you've actually gone in to like save the lum or to go into the secret room and solve the puzzle. Whoa!
That was a burst of wind. Don't worry, no ghosts.
What the? Because I'm not looking at you. I'm looking at the chat, and all I hear is just like a goddamn noise.
That was just a door slam. Don't worry about it.
Whoa. Okay. Is that a ghost?
No, that's I'm just gonna go close the window real quick. You keep talking.
Oh no. This is just viral marketing for Soma. This is the new frictional games. I don't like this at all. So I'll just talk to the chat. Oh, wait, what happened? I can't hear you.
you can hear me?
Now I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, no, the wind is coming, man.
Did you get rid of those ghosts?
Yeah, no, it's a storm. There's a storm brewing.
Ah.
I had to go close the window because the door slammed shut. Anyway, everything's fine. Don't worry about me.
So are there are like 700 lums? Like it doesn't seem like I'd be able to collect all 700 in the worlds that are on screen right now. Is there like a secret second half?
There's stuff.
Okay, there's stuff. Okay, that's good. That's good enough. That's all I need to know.
There's no. I mean, I just play the game.
I'll play the game. And I will say that as it's so fantastic, and all it does is it's getting me more excited for Super Mario 3D World. That's all that Rayman Legends is doing. Is I'm enjoying it very much, but I know it's coming. The real storm is coming. The storm that is Super Mario 3D World is coming, and I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah, that game's gonna be pretty great.
Did you play anything else over the weekend, or mostly?
I played a little more Zelda. Zelda is still pretty dope. I didn't play a whole lot of it. I just got through one of the dungeons that I had started in on last weekend, and then I downloaded both Foul Play and the early version of Audio Surf 2. I have not really spent much time with either of them yet, but I have them, and I'm looking forward to playing both of those because Foul Play looked really cute. From what I saw of it, I know it's technically just kind of a beat 'em up, but it seemed like it would be pretty fun. And then Audio Surf, I do love me some goddamn Audio Surf. So
can you explain what that is? I know it is like a frequency type game, but
yeah.
I don't know. I've never played it.
So Audio Surf takes your music and loads it into like VibRibbon style. It builds levels off of whatever audio tracks you load into it. And it's it's basically like you're just sort of moving along this roller coastery kind of track, and you're trying to collect these. I mean, there's different versions of the game within the game, like different rule sets. But you're trying to, like in the one I always played, you're always trying to collect these specific gems along the track and trying to avoid certain other ones in rhythm and time to whatever song you put in there. So if you put in, fucking Dragon Force or something, it's going to be a super fast, long-ass, crazy level. If you put in some, down-tempo grooves, it's going to be a pretty low-key, not crazy kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
This one seems like it kind of builds on, like it actually adds a dude that is actually surfing on your music. And I think there's some other, like, rule set changes and stuff. I've only played, like, the main mode, which is the one I just described, and it's kind of the same, but like looks a lot better and seems like a lot more functional than the original game was. So I'm into that. Does that make sense? Do you get it?
It does make sense. Yeah. No. I'm excited to play it. I was a huge VibRibbon frequency fan, and for whatever reason I didn't get into the original Audio Surf. But I know that you bring up Audio Surf in front of Jeff and he freaks out. And yeah, I'm looking forward to playing this one. I probably won't touch the early access stuff. That's
sure.
It's rare that I jump into those types of things, but I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how that ends up at some point.
Yeah, it's what little I played a little bit at PAX, and then I tried a couple of songs real quick when I downloaded it earlier this morning, and I am A-okay with what I have played so far of that game. I think it's definitely worth checking out, especially if you're already liked Audio Surf. I don't think there's much reason not to just jump in on the early access for that one. You can wait a little bit.
Okay. I should point out to the chat that not a lot happened this weekend, so we're going to try and pluck a bunch of questions from you guys. So I asked for some over Twitter, which I'll pull some from, but if you have any questions for us, feel free to shoot them over to me in the chat, and after we get through the brief amount of headlines that we do have, we will turn it over to you guys. So I guess if you can qualify it as big news, Injustice: Gods Among Us was announced for PS4, but not Xbox One. There was also a Vita version announced that I think will retail for $40. And also no Wii U version, but I don't think that's a big shock. High Voltage Software ported the game to Vita and PS4. This maybe sounds like potentially a case where there were absolutely no plans to bring this out for next gen, and Sony said, "Hey, what if we gave you some money?"
What if there was this money that just sort of appeared in front of you?
That's
What then?
completely speculative. That is not informed by anything that should be remotely considered knowledge. But hard to imagine that there wasn't some sort of motivation on Sony's side to incentivize them to outsource a port, if not Sony just outright paying for it. Hard to say, but there must have been something going on if they chose to put it out on one platform and not the other, because that just doesn't happen these days. You put it out on everything because you try and maximize your profit. Rayman Legends, case in point, they said, we're not going to make that much money on this game anyway. Why would we put it out on something where we'll make zero money? Let's port it to everything else and release it all at the same time. So certainly something went on with Injustice. Not anything that is even necessarily shady. It's just something happened there for that to not come out on Xbox One.
Well, and granted, when they did that for Rayman, they had to put out those severely compromised versions of Rayman on the other consoles. In this case, I don't think they're what are they going to do? They're just going to bump up the visuals and then probably include all the DLC as probably some sort of Game of the Year type pack, right? And that's it. There you go. There's your Injustice that looks better now. So I don't know. That seems like even less far-fetched than something like the whole Rayman situation where they actually had to change the game in some ways. Here it's nah, we're just going to make this look better and put it out for next gen on PS4. So here you go. Enjoy. I mean, yeah, totally. Why not? That game's good. I probably won't play it again on next gen, but why not?
I didn't play it, but there's okay. One I should point out that High Voltage, I guess, did the PS4 version. Armature did the Vita version. The guys, the ex-Metroid Prime guys who are doing the Batman spinoff. Got to admit, a little depressed that the people that made Metroid Prime, this is what they're doing with their time. But you got to make your money. But they're also doing a PC version. I did not play Mortal Kombat 9 on the PC. I'm not aware if that was a worthy port or not. But I didn't play Injustice. I really like the story mode of Mortal Kombat, so maybe I'll end up playing the PC version.
Yeah, why not?
That wouldn't be a horrible way to spend a couple of hours.
It's a good fighting game. It's if I had to pick between them, I would say I probably prefer Mortal Kombat. But as being someone who doesn't even really care about the DC universe all that much, I thought they did a pretty good job making me actually care about anything happening in a DC universe game in that one. And it's fun. It plays like Mortal Kombat, except everyone has superpowers. It's pretty great.
Yeah. So also, let's see. Well, what do you got? What do you got?
SNK has ordered the makers of the fabled Neo Geo X Gold device to stop producing them. You may remember a year and a half, 2 years ago, I can't remember when they announced this dumb thing. Handheld Neo Geo device, Neo Geo X. They also put out, I think, an arcade stick and a bunch of greatest hits software packages and stuff. This device. A lot of people thought it was a totally fake device when it came out because it looked like just the chintziest ass, some dude in China decided to make this thing with all the Neo Geo branding and didn't tell anyone kind of thing. And then it actually turned out to be officially licensed. And now Tomo, the company that made it, is now being told no longer to make these. So Patrick, if you want to get your Neo Geo X, now is the time to get one because soon they will no longer exist.
No, that thing is garbage.
Yeah, I know.
When was sort of prematurely excited about it because I, like a lot of other people, loved my Neo Geo Pocket Color. That was a badass handheld that not enough people bought. That had some really goddamn good games for it.
Oh yeah.
And so obviously this was different. This wasn't going to play Neo Geo Pocket games, but the idea of having Neo Geo style games in a handheld, even though the idea of having a handheld specifically for Neo Geo games is sort of ridiculous in 2013. Other than sort of functionally as a device, it not being that impressive, the way they were selling the games was ridiculous. And,
oh yeah.
Just a complete exploitation and gouging of a fan base. So, in some ways, I'm pretty happy this has been a total failure and it's buried them because they really didn't clearly think this through in a way that was going to sort of honor the Neo Geo legacy and also be self-aware of how much those games are worth in 2013. I think people are willing to overpay for Neo Geo because that's also kind of part of it.
Yeah.
But the way
that is sort of part of the deal, isn't it?
Yeah, but the way they had set it up was insulting for what that stuff is worth, and so a little bit of a bummer, I guess, in the sense that there will never be another one of these.
Yeah,
but kills it.
I mean, this really kills it because the thing that really struck me about this whole deal was the curtness with which the license agreement was apparently terminated. There's a thing on the SNK website where they basically said, in order to protect our intellectual property rights such as Neo Geo and SNK, decisive measures will be taken against all unapproved Neo Geo X products not subject to the license agreement.
That's weird. That's a very strange piece.
They're just like, our agreement is done. We are not doing this anymore. Fuck these guys. We're out. And you don't see a lot of really direct language like that in those kinds of things very often. So I'm guessing something went real raw, real fast over there. Oh well.
Weird.
Oh, what else did I pick out? So apparently the people at Maxis are talking a bunch of yang about trying to explore some kind of offline mode for SimCity. Patrick, who cares anymore about that?
Well, I didn't play SimCity when it came out because everyone was talking so much smack about it, and I don't really see a whole lot of reason to change that. Partially because I'd never played a SimCity before outside of like kind of briefly getting into SimCity 2000 and SimCity for SNES, but it doesn't appear that they're like it isn't like one of the things now that they're trying to figure out their mod tools and they're like basically putting a bunch of restrictions in it that are sort of the antithesis of what you would kind of allow modders to get into.
I think all the mod stuff, I saw this mentioned somewhere, is like all pretty visual based. Like they're not really letting you do anything particularly interesting to the game itself. It's just like, hey, you can make stuff look like stuff now, which is terrific, I guess. I don't know. I mean, I liked the basic core of that game apart from all the online shit when it came out. I hated the space limitations and I hated the forced online stuff, but the mechanics of city building in that game were pretty great. And I think if someone actually made a really good offline SimCity using those tools and that design, and then actually let you do mod stuff to it and make it crazy, then it would be pretty great. In this case, it doesn't really sound like they're doing that. It just sounds like they're just trying to find a way to make the existing game work offline, which doesn't sound like it would be that much fun because you're still dealing with the space limitations. You're still having to deal with all that region-based bullshit. So I don't even know what you would do there exactly. This seems like too little too late to me, and just... Also, completely flies in the face of them saying, no, this game has to be online because was our design philosophy, and that this is what this game does, and it has to be online all the time. Don't you understand? It has to be online. And then, oh, wait, no, maybe not. Maybe it doesn't. Just seems kind of like bullshit.
Yeah. Well put. BioShock 2 re-released on Steam with games for Windows ripped out, and now I guess you get... Some people were saying you got Minerva's Den for free. I saw some of that going on online.
Yeah. I think if you got the game, you got the Minerva's Den thing for free.
Okay, I think if you'd already owned it, I believe you got Minerva's Den for free. If that is the case, and you have not played Minerva's Den, stop being a monster and go play Minerva's Den. Absolutely one of the best DLC add-ons made for a game, arguably better than BioShock 2. A game that I did like, I think got too much shit for a game that was called BioShock 2. Not better than BioShock, but still worth playing. And Minerva's Den, especially if you enjoyed Gone Home, that is largely a lot of the same team that built Gone Home, and you can definitely see the thematic consistency between the two things. Definitely should play that.
Tiny Death Star, Patrick.
Sure, I don't know. I've not really played Nimblebits games.
You played but you played some Nibble Quest though, didn't you?
A little bit. Like half an hour. They seem fine.
They're time wasters. I mean, I just thought the idea of Tiny Death Star was kind of adorable.
I think when you're talking about making licensed games, that's more of that.
That's pretty great.
If I don't play that, that's fine, but I think that makes a lot of sense. Valve unveiled prototype Steambox specs, which are largely super high-end, where they were surprisingly high-end. I don't know what to say about that. It's high-end.
I mean, it's multiple specs that they're sending out, right? Like there are different video cards, different GPUs, all that stuff. Hey, that's I don't know. I don't know if I was expecting them to put out anything that would be like on the super low end, really.
No, they've said the low end stuff is going to be closer to those streaming boxes, I would assume, and I think that stuff is still a work in progress. They have other considerations like the controller and what the box looks like and Steam OS. I think we're going to learn about the streaming stuff probably last.
Yeah.
I would assume that they're not going to want to get that out the door until they are mighty confident about whether it's going to work, because that's probably going to have to make a pretty decent first impression in order for people to be on board, even as much slack as people tend to give Valve. That's all I've got.
That's all I got.
All I've got. Okay, let's see. Let me pull up. But here's a question for you. I don't know who said it. Let me see if I can find it. I'll give myself about 3 seconds in order to actually find. Yeah, okay. Christopher Odd asks, regarding Beyond Two Souls, are launch day embargoes a bad sign, good sign? What are the reasons that companies do this? As someone who does the most reviews, what has, in your experience, been about sort of when embargoes fall and how reflective that is of the quality of the game they're in?
It's not always reflective of the quality. It is reflective of how much confidence a publisher tends to have in a game. The further up to the wire you tend to put it, the less confidence you tend to believe they have in a product in terms of people giving a shit about it or at least liking it. So in this case, I have to imagine that Sony isn't really sure what anyone's going to think of Beyond Two Souls, and without breaking embargoes here, I will simply say I kind of get why that's the case. That said, there's definitely not a direct proportion between how much, I have played plenty of, for a day of embargo games that have been very, very good. Some pretty spectacular, even. But usually when a company is willing to kind of, put it out, the Monday before or even, the Friday before, that says that they really want to generate as much buzz as they can because they believe in the product. They are very excited about it. They want to get as much, hype and as much marketing out there as they can before the game actually comes out. Here, it's I'm guessing that someone at Sony is just well, this is another David Cage thing. It's kind of a niche thing. A lot of people don't really know what to make of these games, even though we obviously spent a lot of money on it. Let's just hedge our bets with the advertising, get the reviews out there on launch day, kind of the last possible minute we can with that stuff, and see how it plays out. That's my guess with that one.
Okay. And I think that makes sense. I think often there aren't really hard and just like advertising, there are not hard and fast rules with what makes sense. You're changing it based on the product and what you think is the best way to generate momentum. It's entirely possible that I think the general response to Beyond Two Souls throughout its development has been what? Even for people like myself who were into Heavy Rain and excited to at least see what David Cage had up his sleeve next, every time I've seen a trailer for Beyond Two Souls, I have just come away genuinely confused about what that game is. Is it supernatural? Is it not? It was one of those things that, all right, I'm just going to ignore it till it comes out, and then I feel like that's been the general response to that game. So as a result, what they have done is said, okay, hopefully it'll be a pleasant surprise, and then if you have a bunch of launch day reviews that say, hey, it's a pleasant surprise, maybe that gets a lot of people to sort of tip over the edge and actually go out and purchase it. And the people that are already into it probably have already purchased it or pre-ordered it, and a bunch of launch day reviews are probably not going to dissuade them from going to pick it up. So you kind of get to have it both ways. Maybe you get some momentum out of the gate, and if you don't, well, you probably keep statistically the vast majority of the people that were already on board with the game.
Yeah, and I just want to stress to the chat real quick, this is not me trying to subversively say, one way or the other about Beyond. I am saying I understand why Sony, doesn't necessarily know what to do with it because it's a David Cage game. Right. None of his games make complete sense from a really easy marketing standpoint. You're trying to market something that is very non-traditional for what video games kind of tend to be in their own way. So that's not a quality judgment. That's just a look. That's what that dude makes. He makes weird shit, and that is not necessarily the easiest to market kind of stuff. That's all I'm saying there. So look for the review tomorrow morning.
Yeah, Real Jones points out in the chat, well, based on confidence model, Naughty Dog has got big balls. The Last of Us review, which I did, I think that was a full week and a half ahead of the game's release. That was both a function of it was released during E3 week, so they were sort of forced to do it ahead of time. But, were they not confident in it? There were, the vast majority of the video game playing public is not at E3. So even if the news cycle is dominated by E3, people are still at home and they want to play games. And So there was confidence there, sort of regardless. But yeah, games, when you get a copy of a game that says you can talk about it a week ahead of time, I guess it's possible you may not end up liking it, but that does show a pretty huge amount of confidence in the publisher.
Oh yeah,
That they're going to come out of the gate with some strong reviews that are going to carry them into those first day sales. And Naughty Dog games, I think, are almost usually always like that. I haven't reviewed any of the Uncharted games, but yeah, they knew they had something special when they put it out the door. And
they know what to do with those games. They know exactly how to market them. So
yeah. A couple people referencing it. There's not like a specific question, but people asking if we saw the new Xbox One video, which I did send to you just before we started. Yet again, there is another kid who just walks through his Xbox One, unboxing it, and he sounds like he's like 14, 15, something like that, and he claims he's going to do a bunch of other videos on his channel, so you better subscribe, and make sure you subscribe before his father gets fired.
Yeah, I mean, at least in this case, he doesn't bring up the dash or start playing games or anything. But now we know. Hey, it just shows what's in the box. So, and at least I don't think he doesn't show his face, right? He doesn't show his face this time. So that bodes better for him.
Let's see. Here, this is an interesting one. Moonpier asks, what games do you play with non-video gamers? I play with my 6-year-old father, and we play stuff like Rayman, the Lego games, Left 4 Dead, Fable, Splinter Cell. That's a really broad spread. Can you recommend more? 360, PS3, also good afternoon. What are you talking about? It's not the afternoon.
Maybe in Europe where he is.
Yeah, usually if I'm playing games with, I guess, not people that don't self-identify as, gamers or video game players on the regular, Nintendo games are a pretty safe bet with that stuff. So a Mario game is pretty common if we've got nothing going on some Saturday evening. I have found pretty quickly that the Oculus Rift is a really easy gateway for people that sort of just casually enjoy video games. I exposed that to my brother this weekend, and he basically flipped his shit for it, and then was immediately on the phone trying to get his friends to come over to check it out. It was an early moment of, I think, validation for as cool as I have found that technology, to see if, the layman's in my life look at that and then also think it's as cool. And in fact, I think they had, based on how my wife responded, how my brother responded, a bigger response than even I would have expected to something like that. And it was fun to watch my brother. He watched part of Spookin' with Scoops when I was doing the Oculus stuff, and at some point, when I took a break, I went out to him, and he was like, "What the hell are you yelling about?" I was like, "These games are pretty scary. I'll show you later when I'm not streaming them on the internet to people." And so I finally showed some to him on Saturday night, and he flipped the shit out, and it was hysterical, and it made me feel very good. It made me feel very good in that older brother screwing with your younger brother kind of way.
Well, that needs to be the next Spookin' with Scoops episode, doesn't it? Like, bring your brother on and making him suffer for your amusement, because I feel like that. I think the audience would most definitely get behind that.
Yeah, I'll definitely have to think about it. But he Dread Halls, which is the one which is in the dungeon, is the one that really got him. He had his knee underneath my desk, and he just rammed it, just like busted it up. Knocked over everything, beers spilling everywhere, speakers on the ground. It was very humorous to watch, for sure.
You clearly should have been filming that moment.
Yeah, I thought about it.
Film him at all times.
Yeah. Willie McBride in the chat pointing out that Castle Crashers is a good one for non-gamers, and yeah, he is definitely right. That was definitely one that I played with my wife a lot, and I've played with other folks, because you just walk from left to right and you bash shit. So that works out pretty well. I don't know. Let's see. Of all the complete edition of games this month, Borderlands 2, Dishonored, Deus Ex, Halo 4, Castlevania, most hype is for... I've already played all those games. So, Game of the Year edition stuff makes a lot of sense, I think, for folks that have the option to sort of get behind on games, and then can pick up much cheaper versions that have all the DLC in them. I think they make a lot of sense from publishers and a value perspective. They just don't make a lot of sense for me. Like, I can't imagine you have many plans to pick up any of those, do you?
No, not particularly, no. But I have picked up a couple of Game of the Year editions, just things that I have, inexplicably been late on before over the years. But none of those in particular am I planning on picking up. But you're right. Yeah, I mean, that stuff makes total sense from a publisher's standpoint, because there are tons of people who don't play games when they come out at launch. Yeah. As we have learned from things like used game sales and people buying stuff years after the fact on Steam sales and what have you. So they work.
Sean Heenan on Twitter asks, what do you think of the release model for XCOM Enemy Within? I guess it solves the 1.5 sequel argument. So Enemy Within is going to be a separate purchase on consoles due to restrictions on Xbox Live and PlayStation Network. It will be a DLC add-on for the PC, but it doesn't introduce new. It introduces new campaign elements. You have new maps, new enemy types, new selections as the commander. It sounds like they're hinting that there are going to be the reintroduction of base missions where the aliens actually come after you. But it's not a sequel. It is the same storyline as much as XCOM Enemy Unknown had a storyline. It is taking the Civilization sort of expansion model of taking the base game and adding things to it.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, I like, personal preference. Would I love just a proper sequel? Probably. But
yeah.
This is not. I don't think this is off base from what they have done in the past with their other games. I think it is just. It comes as a surprise for I think folks like myself who played this on the console, where this is not a common way to treat how you do an expansion. I'm not sure how much interest you've had or have followed Enemy Within.
I haven't terribly. I mean, I liked Enemy Unknown quite a bit. It's a very, very good game, and I'm based on what I've read about this expansion, it seems like this all things that I would probably like to play at some point, but I have not been following it with great levels of interest. I'm not sure if expansion was really necessarily what I was looking for. I was probably looking for more of like a sequel or like an outright building upon of what they did with Enemy Unknown. Just adding stuff to the game I already kind of played through doesn't necessarily super excite me the way that would with, like, say, Civ 5.
That's right. You're actually a big Civ guy, so you can actually speak to maybe like how does it work in Civ, because it's the same sort of idea, but you've actually played some of these Civ expansions.
But the difference with Civ is that each game can take a long time, but those games don't run nearly as long as an entire game of Enemy Unknown does. So what it does is it just grafts new mechanics onto the game. With the religion stuff was added in the first expansion. All the trade stuff was added in the most recent one. So it just rewrites the rules of the game and makes it so that there's new units, there's obviously new civilizations. It just adds content to the basic structure of what was already there. So, in this case, it's probably the same idea, and, I'm sure that will be fine. It's just not necessarily, again, what I was looking for from XCOM versus, say, Civ, which is, I think, better fits the kind of expansion model versus, like, an outright sequel than necessarily something like XCOM. But maybe that's just me. I don't know. That's just kind of how I feel about it.
Well, I definitely feel like if I was to play XCOM again, I don't know, there's less free-form choice in XCOM. I mean, it's a strategy game, but Civilization is so expansive.
Yes.
Every game can play out so radically different, and I don't think that's necessarily the case as much in XCOM. At least that was my experience. But then maybe they're adding just enough that it would force you to play completely different. It's hard to say until we actually get into it, but I'm a maybe. It's just I feel like I'm gonna have so much else to play that is gonna be pretty low on my priority list, and would probably be something I'd be more interested in checking out when we're getting closer to an actual proper sequel, which of course they will probably do, and that would be like a good primer to get ready for it.
Yeah, and I mean the one thing I will say was that with Fire Access, like, those Civ 5 expansions really did change the game in pretty fundamental ways. In like good ways. Like if I were to try to go back and just play straight Civ 5 after playing both expansions and adding all the other stuff to it, I don't think I would like it nearly as much anymore. Like they are pretty good about fixing their own games and making them much better over time. So I'll give them that.
Hey, you know what's coming out this week that I
What's that?
didn't even the wolf Telltales what's it called? What's it called? Wolf Among Us. Wolf Among Us.
Woo!
I'm actually psyched for that.
I am too.
I feel like there's probably less buzz than there should be for the next Telltale series, but I wonder if that is a function of Telltale wanting to, you know, Walking Dead may have been, sort of a once-in-a-lifetime thing for that studio. Not that they won't continue to put out quality products or interesting stories, but Walking Dead was truly something else. And
it came out of nowhere.
Yeah,
it came out of absolutely nowhere.
And playing up too much that here's the next series from the creators of The Walking Dead, might create unrealistic expectations. So, I'm hoping what is actually happening here is that they're, kind of playing it safe so that it will also maybe come as a pleasant surprise. As The Walking Dead did.
They've been promoting it here and there, and they've definitely made some noise about it, but I definitely get the impression that they're trying not to overdo it. They're trying not to they're not trying to just ride the back of Walking Dead to success with everything they're doing. Like they're trying to, because this is a different team. This is a different group working on that game, I think, and I think they kind of want it to exist on its own merits, which I appreciate. And I will say, what I've seen of that game looks really, really good. Just from a storytelling perspective, like I wasn't super into the premise when they told me about it, but like watching it, seeing the way they've built out those characters and the way they've put it together, and visually, like that game looks really good. Great voice acting. Like I think that one could actually be really great, totally on its own merits. I'm looking forward to Walking Dead Season 2 as much as the next guy, but coming into someone who had no real interest in the Fable comics whatsoever, I'm actually pretty excited about this. I'm definitely going to take some time and play through that first episode, start to finish, and see how it is. Because if that's another really good series they've got, going for the long term, then good for them. That's great.
Some people in the chat asking if you saw Gravity this weekend.
I did.
I don't know if you're going to do a movie podcast. I don't want you to spoil all your thoughts, but did you like Gravity? Was it as good as people are saying it is?
So I will not. We are doing a movie podcast sometime in the next week, so I won't go completely ape shit on this one. But I will say it is a very, very, very good movie in terms of tension building, visuals, and kind of a bad script. But other than that, it manages to overcome that pretty easily by just wringing every ounce of tension it possibly can out of the audience for 90 minutes straight. It is an experience. You should go see it.
Yeah. Katie was out of town, so I held off. But that's my plan next weekend is to go see that in proper IMAX 3D. But yeah, I think movies like that are interesting because you wouldn't qualify them as horror, but they definitely seem like it absolutely is. It's just
it's
it
more like
have a monster.
Stress. It's more just abject anxiety, just nonstop from beginning to end. So yeah, it's not really horror so much as it is just you are just clenched up the whole time.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it. And I wish there were clones of Alfonso Cuarón. I wish we got movies from him more than once every 4 to 5 years. But maybe this is his. I don't know, how well did Children of Men do actually at the box office? Was that a big success or just like a critical?
I feel like it did pretty well. I can look it up real fast while we're sitting.
But I feel like Gravity is definitely on a different level and is going to elevate Cuarón to a place.
Well, Harry Potter also kind of let him do that as well because he directed that third Harry Potter movie.
It did, but that's Harry Potter, right? Like I think there's something different when you can have it
lost
completely.
Money.
It did.
Yeah,
okay.
It made 35 in America, 34 overseas, and it was a $76 million movie, so it did not quite make its money back.
Yeah, whereas I think Gravity maybe will be where Alfonso Cuarón graduates to, hey man, do whatever the fuck you want. which is exciting because he is such a like those directors coming out of like Spain and Mexico are doing super exciting things. Guillermo del Toro, Alfonso Cuarón. I'm happy to see more instances of those guys just being given a blank paycheck. So hopefully that continues to happen.
I need to go back and watch Children of Men again. I haven't seen it in a couple of years. That movie's fucking fantastic.
Yeah, it is. All right. Well, seems like we kind of covered the spread. But you're not gonna play Pokemon, are you? People are asking about Pokemon. I'm not gonna play Pokemon.
I'm not gonna play Pokemon because I've never really played Pokemon, and I'm just not a Pokemon fan. And I feel like everyone's saying, no, this one's really good. This one fixes so many problems. I don't know what any of those problems were. I don't really know enough about Pokemon to say definitively whether this one is better than the other ones. And nothing about what I've read about this one sounds great. Sounds great for Pokemon fans. Does not sound like something I would enjoy personally.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Well, Alex, what are you up to this week? You got Beyond coming tomorrow. What's the rest of your week looking like?
The rest of my week is pretty open beyond that. I got a couple of events to
attend.
Beyond that. Ha-ha!
Shut this show down.
Word association. I am hilarious. That said, aside from Beyond, I don't have a whole lot going on other than a couple of events, so I will probably try and get back to some video recording this week and get back on that train. What do you got coming up, Patrick?
I'm going to try and write those reviews of Amnesia and Outlast this week. I've got Spook with Scoops on Wednesday night. Maybe I'll run my exclusive, lengthy, in-depth interview with a certain film director this week, which I gave you a sneak preview of. Very impressive. Definitely got some real nuance that I don't think you're going to see anywhere else from that interview.
For sure.
And there's this game called Knock Knock that people are talking a lot about that I might try and check out this week. And then on Friday, I may or may not have something from Frictional Games that people would be interested in checking out. So
cool.
Still a lot set up there. I'm going to try and beat Rayman Legends. So in any case, Alex, I will talk to you again on Friday. And thank you, everyone.
Maybe before then even.
What?
Oh, I might actually talk to you before Friday.
Oh, okay. I was like, what's happening? What are you planning? What did I miss out on? I had a brief moment of like, what the hell is he talking about? Yeah, no, we are banned from talking to each other until Friday. But
That's
all
what
right,
makes
Alex.
the show so good.
Exactly, it's all the tension. All right, Alex, I'll talk to you on Friday. That's a show.
Ow!